Good evening. It's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, March 21st, 2017. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight for the English edition of Aura News, where we bring you today's top stories translated into English every weeknight. The Assembly Speaker, Mr. Ilir Meta, responded today to the opposition's threat to boycott the elections, declaring that Albania is a pluralist country. Pluralism arrived in Albania on December 12, 1990, and we should all work towards these elections being excellent and far from the categorical approach that can bring catastrophic consequences for Albania and its future, declared Mr. Meta, who also commented on the statement made by the head of the Socialist Movement for Integration Parliamentary Group, who earlier declared that elections without the opposition are a farce. Mr. Meta interpreted this as a statement that boosts the elections forward and does not undermine them. Please do not transform messages that aim to move the elections forward and not to undermine them, added Mr. Meta. The Assembly Speaker's statement was made during the inauguration of a reconstructed school in Tirana, where he was accompanied by the Mayor of Tirana and the Minister of Education. The Central Election Commission has decided to set up the Electoral Administration Zone Commissions without the opposition for the June 18th elections. The CEC spokeswoman clarified today that the process should have begun earlier, but it had been postponed beyond the deadline because neither the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party had presented their proposals. The Central Election Commission will fill the member and secretary vacancies in the Electoral Administration Zone Commissions left by the two opposition parties. The Central Election Commission should have already set up the commissions of the Electoral Administration Zones and should have set the date for their first meeting. The cause for the deadline not being met is the failure of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party to meet the legal obligation in presenting their proposals for members and secretaries for the Electoral Administration Zone Commissions. The CEC gives assurance that the selection procedure and appointment of these members will be made with complete transparency, said the CEC spokeswoman in a media outlet. Ruçi, the chairman of the Socialist Party parliamentary group, declared today that the election date will not change. He cited the Constitution saying that elections are held every 4 years except in the case of any national emergency, and asserting that this is not Albania's case. Albanian people do not want a crisis. Albanian people do not want destabilization. Albanian people want to exert their constitutional rights. Each party presents its offer and people make the decision. The people decide who will be the majority and who will be the opposition. Elections are held once every 4 years and they are postponed only in extraordinary situations. Albania is not in an extraordinary situation. The Constitution and the people's right to vote every 4 years prevails, declared Mr. Ruçi. The chairman of the Socialist Party parliamentary group's statement was made after the opposition's continuous call to establish a provisional government and for postponing the election date in what they declare is the only way to get free and fair elections. For the first time in the 32 days of protest by the opposition, U.S. Ambassador Donald Liu held a meeting with former Prime Minister Sali Berisha. The U.S. ambassador's stance is not known, but Berisha's press office informs that Mr. Berisha asked for the United States and the European Union to hold a stance against the Prime Minister, who, according to Berisha, is trying to buy the elections with monies coming from drug trafficking. In the meeting, Mr. Berisha listed 4 reasons he feels the elections are at risk. According to the former Prime Minister's press office, Mr. Berisha declared that the situation is critical for the country and that planting cannabis all around the country was Edi Rama's politics. Another reason Mr. Berisha gave is criminal gangs, as according to Berisha, the Prime Minister is setting criminals free. The former Prime Minister also claims that public administration employees are being obligated to ensure votes for the government. His final concern raised being about the media in the country, which, according to Berisha, is worse than it was in 1991, claiming the opposition is being censured by the media. During the meeting with the U.S. ambassador, the former prime minister emphasized that the opposition is protesting for free and fair elections and not for power. Democratic Party Chairman Basha made some strong statements on last night's program Tonight Ilvatare, saying that facade elections will not be held on either June 18th or November 18th. The DP chairman denied the rumors of a possible meeting with majority representatives meant to find a solution to the situation, declaring that the Democratic Party will return to Parliament to vote on vetting only if there is a national pact for free and fair elections through a provisional government. Nothing is as it used to be before February 18th. Everything has changed. Fear has been killed. The citizens' courage is in the square. The project called the New Republic is supported not only by the opposition supporters, but also by supporters all around Albania. A provisional government is the only guarantee for free elections. Edi Rama has only one way out: to resign. Edi Rama's removal is a matter of time, and we are here to guarantee that his removal has the fewest costs for Albania. We are determined for a peaceful movement, declared the DP chairman. When asked about the Prime Minister's readiness to dialogue with the opposition, the DP chairman retorted that he can dialogue with the Prime Minister only after he resigns. Regarding the National Pact, the DP chairman had this to say: "A national pact is a political pact of all political parties for the establishment of a provisional government for free and fair elections. Facade elections with drugs, crime, and with Edi Rama will be held neither on June 18th nor on November 18th. Standards will be applied. Albanian people will have free elections according to European standards. No other elections will be held," declared Basha. The opposition is now on its 32nd day of protesting at a tent set up outside the Prime Minister's office. The Democratic Party chairman, Basha, is not there. He is on an official visit to the United States of America, where he will hold meetings with high-ranking officials to discuss the political situation and the request for establishing a provisional government. While the DP chairman is in the U.S., art was the topic of discussion at the protesters' tent. Different artists and historians called on citizens to protest and not allow former communists and criminals into Parliament. Artists and historians called for free and fair elections, emphasizing that everything stems from the free vote. Foreign Minister Ditmir Bushati continues his visit to Washington, D.C., where he held a series of meetings in the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. In the meeting with Ed Royce, the chairman of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, and Congressman Eliot Engel, talks focused on the importance of bilateral cooperation in the reforms process for rule of law in our country, with a special regard to implementing the judicial reform. The parties discussed the judicial reform's transformative effects, not only in daily routines for citizens, but also from a security perspective and an economic perspective within the rule of law. While praising the course of reforms in the rule of law in Albania, Congressman Royce and Engel expressed the U.S. Congress's willingness to continue supporting their further consolidation as a field where the U.S. has invested extensive human resources and financial support during the past 3 decades. At a meeting with Senator Chris Murphy, a member of the Special Commission for Europe, the diplomats dwelt on the recent developments in the region, in particular, the importance of the Albanian-U.S. strategic partnership, the progress of cooperation in the security field, and the course of the reforms for the rule of law in our country. Minister Bushati highlighted the dynamic and constructive engagement of Albania in the region, its contribution in the fight against terrorism and violent extremism, and the progress of the state consolidating reforms in Albania in the framework of the EU integration process. Senator Murphy gave his assessments over the state consolidating reforms, the Albanian-U.S. cooperation within the framework of NATO, Albania's commitment to strengthening security in the region and facing the common challenges such as the fight against ISIS. Also, Senator Murphy reaffirmed the special role of the U.S. as an irreplaceable actor for the security and prosperity of southeastern Europe. That's all for our English edition this evening. Please join us again Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. for your local news in English. My name is Mari, and on behalf of Aura News, thank you and good night.